This is Judge Joe Brown, and we're listening to We All Be News. News-free Dixie for the 21st century.
So I want to ask you, in your opinion, we're with football great, football pioneer, Kansas City Chief, great Hall of Famer, brother Curtis McClInton. I want to ask you a question. Who is the greatest Kansas City Chief of all time?
The greatest Kansas City Chief of all time, in my opinion, would have been Bobby Bell. Bobby was not only an outstanding athlete with a speed of 4.5, but also Bobby knew the game. Originally in college, he played quarterback, and then when he came into pro ball, they switched him to defensive linebacker because he could read the offense so well being a quarterback. And also he was a hitter, and also he could outrun most of the backs.
Wow.
He had great speed.
Wow. And how was it like? I know you played also with, I guess he's a movie star, Fred Williamson. How was it to play with the HamMEr?
The HamMEr was and still is and always will be an actor, and he was an actor on the field, and a lot of drama. Mm-hmm. But the great thing about Fred is that he was very bright. He had the ability to analyze and see the game and predict the game in his mind and be where it was supposed to be. His ability to always execute wasn't there, but he had the ability to assemble other players into the momentum of the execution, and he was a part of it.
And so what about Len Dawson?
Len Dawson, in my opinion, was a very, very, very quantitative, observing, and executing quarterback. And his talent really flowed with the talent that was on the field. The talent wasn't really assimilated around his abilities. It was assimilated around the abilities and the talents that he had. He was like a good farmer. It was what he planted and what his harvest was when he basically captured the best of the harvest day.
What about, I'm going to like overall greatest of all time. Who was the greatest coach of all time?
I would say the greatest coach, in my opinion, of all time was Hank Stram. Coach Stram really was not a player in his own right, but he was a student of the game. His love and his passion of the game made him a basic student and scholar of the game to the point that he was able to express it, analyze it, and execute it and teach it.
Wow. So he mean better than like Lombardi and all them guys?
In my opinion, yes, because he had the vision and the perspective of what he wanted, and he could convey it to you in the big picture, and then also to you as an individual in your position, and how it wove together, and how you could easily make it blossom into that beautiful flower.
Wow.
Which was winning. And he did that. And you know, he was not an athlete and a player of the game himself. but a student of the game, and it was his passion and his love to encode the knowledge and skill and to plant a tree and cultivate it and let it harvest.
Excellent. Who's the greatest football player of all time?
The greatest football player of all time, in my opinion, was Bobby Bell.
Really?
He, in college, was a quarterback, and in professional football, as you know, he was a defensive corner, a defensive back. But he knew the game. He understood the game. He could absorb the game and encode the game in his mind to defend what a quarterback was going to do. And he had the speed of a running back, and he had the toughness of a tackle, and he had the smartness of a scout on the field.
Wow. That's great. So, what advice would you give to the Chiefs today, the Kansas City Chiefs right now? I mean, they've been contenders for the last several years under, I guess, Andy Reid, Coach Andy Reid. What are some things you like to impart to them? Like, what advice would you give?
My advice to them is to stay the course and continue to plant the seeds that come from a good crop into your organization, and stay the course and focus and stay what keeps you there, but get better.
Okay. And also, what do you think about, I guess, today's stars like Cam Newton? What do you think about him for the Carolina Panthers?
Well, I'm going to be very, very honest. I read more books nowadays than I do watch the game.
Yes, sir.
So you're asking me something that's current and up to date, and I'm not current and up to date in regards to personalities and talent in the game itself.
I'm going to ask you, I guess, from a historical point of view, Dan, what was the greatest football team of all time, in your opinion? Like the greatest football team of all time?
The greatest football team of all time? That's a very good question, because it makes you really reflect and codify the present and the past. But I would say the greatest team of all time was the Cleveland Browns. When Jim Brown was there and the teams that they had.
Why you say that? What made you say that?
Well, they had a system, and they had a sense of cohesiveness, and they pulled it together to be winners. But to be quite frank about it, I spent some time with them and some of their players in their All-Star games, and I was surprised at the limited amount of talent and speed that they had. But there was a high conceptual sense of unity, of team and fellowship and bonding, and a clear understanding of the goal of what it took as a team to win. And that was very enlightening to me, because I spent more time trying to figure out how they did it with such little talent, or what I would say exceptional talent.
Right.
They had talent, and it may have not been little, because they were able to achieve with the talent they had, but it was not exceptional talent.
Wow, that's a good point. So really it's not about talent, it's about team.
It is about the assimilation, the cohesiveness, the focusedness, and the ability to believe in one another to accomplish an objective. And also a sense of leadership from team and coach in regards to those that do not meet that standard and goal, to be either debased from the team, or they would get their act together and assimilate to the norms that were necessary to be on the team.
Wow. Wow, that's great. Well, I guess that's about it. Yeah, that's pretty much answer my quarterback. Who's the best quarterback of all time?
That's a very interesting question. The thing about it, I would have to say Lynn Dawson, because I played with him my whole professional career.
Mm-hmm.
But the reason I say he was the best quarterback, he had the ability to analyze the defense and apply the offensive talent that he had to the defense and to attack their weaknesses. And it was like a glove not fitting being adjusted all the time with Len Dawson. And he was a thinker. And also he was a reflector of leadership that acknowledged his talent and ability when it pulled together.
Wow. Thank you so much, bro. Curtis. Words are great to go to. We love you, madly. Keep on producing and pushing.
Thank you very much. It's always a pleasure.